Hey gang, John Backrell here with the Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Thursday, March 6th, and I probably should have said ice fishing report because we are still ice fishing technically, and I'll get into all those details here coming up pretty quick. Water temperature at Belle Isle ticked back down 1 degree, so it's still back at 32, which basically means that we still have a ton of ice in the system, which we do. So let's start. This is really going to be more of an ice report than an ice fishing report, just because that's what all you guys want to know, and you've been calling the store, umpteen times in the last 2 days, wanting to know details. And so this is the best way to really give you details is by doing these videos like this and then putting pictures and videos online. So let's start out on the north end of the lake. I drove up there this morning, kind of mid-morning-ish, after the winds subsided a little bit, although they're still were blowing like 30 miles an hour. Did you guys hear those winds last night howling? I guess we had like 50-mile-an-hour winds blast through here last night, and I mean, everything was just shaking and howling, and it blew all day, 30 to 35 miles an hour, so basically gale force winds, and they were offshore. Now, up on the north end of the lake, let's start at the raft bar, at the parking lot there looking out, ice. Just lots of ice, okay? So north end of the lake, really, the ice has got nowhere to go at this point. Shorelines up there starting to get beat up pretty good, so getting on and off may be an issue, although there were still people out there even today. Those colder temps the last 2 nights have definitely firmed things back up, so that top layer that was starting to get honeycombed firmed up quite a bit up there in those areas, and based on, well, I'll get into the weather forecast towards the end. But so anyways, there's definitely ice off the raft. No open water in sight other than along the shorelines in pockets. So, and I think they were still, as of the day before, driving machines out there, although today being a weekday on a Thursday, there wasn't much activity, although I did see one machine that was out there. Sliding back down a little bit to the south, I guess to the south, more I guess to the west of there, over to the Fairhaven boat launch. Same deal. I mean, it's the same chunk of ice, but I just wanted to give you guys perspectives of the launch themselves. And that launch is getting a little more beat up because it's had more machine traffic there. And this time of the year, it's the machines that beat that ice up along the shoreline a lot of times that make it, harder for you guys that are going to walk on to get on and off. I don't think they'll be parking trucks out there this weekend. If they do, they'll be very foolish. But I know they were still taking trucks out there last weekend, but I think that's going to be a no-go now. For my opinion, it's no-go for machines from here on out if you can get on and off the ice, although I know some of you guys are going to try, and that's on you, not on me. Sliding around a little bit further, taking a look out at the same ice from Bobby Mack's, and again, it's just ice. No open water in sight out there at all. Ice down along the edges, along the shoreline, remarkably are holding up pretty darn good still. So if you can find a good spot where the ice hasn't pulled away from the shoreline, you shouldn't have any trouble getting on or off. Now, I guess I should put a disclaimer in here. This time of the year, this is like, I don't want to call it high risk, but at this time of the year, you're going to have potentially open pockets of water out there. You're going to have lots of variability out there on the ice, not just along the shoreline, but once you get out. So I am in no way saying that the ice is safe. All I'm going to say is that I know a lot of you guys are going to still get out on the ice and are used to doing this kind of late thing, just like I am. But if you're a newcomer to the sport of ice fishing, now is probably not the time to go out and learn about it, because we're going to have rapidly changing conditions out there, especially after we get through this, little tiny cold snap that we're kind of having over the weekend, or I should say colder temps, at least nighttime temps below freezing and daytime temps just above freezing. So I'm definitely not saying that the ice is safe in any regard, but I know a lot of you guys are going to still go out there. So driving down along the shoreline from Bobby Mack's back to the south, back headed towards Selfridge, there was a ton of ice out there still. Pretty much all of Anchor Bay is still locked up. Bouvier definitely. And then you'll start to see some open water as you get into the New Baltimore area out there on the lake. And then from there down towards Brandenburg Park. That's where you really see that the ice blew out. Is really out by Brandenburg. Don't think I shot any video there at Brandenburg. It's just you got about maybe 75 yards of ice out past the fishing pier there, and then after that it's open water for a pretty good stretch until you hit that ice going up into Anchor Bay proper. So coming back down to Selfridge, okay? Now, this is one of the places we saw one of the biggest differences in that report I did last week. You saw that water was flowing in there, and guys were still getting on and off there pretty easy out of the boat launch until yesterday. And yesterday, we had one too many machines there, and we had a golf cart go through. And once the golf cart went through, the recovery efforts to get that golf cart out pretty much trashed that ice there by the boat launch. And so now you cannot get onto the ice from the boat launch itself. If you are going to get on the ice at Selfridge, you're going to have to go over that wall in the front. And it didn't look horrible out there, although I got a lot of reports from different people that there are pockets of open water out there between the Selfridge access point and going towards the barracks, and also from the Selfridge access point going back towards Cotton Road. So you're going to have to be really careful if you go out there. This is that time of the year where you're getting all them little pockets that open up, and you know it can be very dangerous going out there in those conditions because it can change while you're out there. Okay, a lot of times I refer to it as like the 10 o'clock rule. And that's a lot of times that if you go below freezing at night, the surface of the ice out there is nice and firm in the morning until you get to about 10 o'clock when that sun angle gets up there, beats down on that ice, softens it up, and then everything changes. So a lot of times if I go out this time of the year, I literally will set an alarm on my watch so that at 10 o'clock my alarm goes off and then it's time to go. It doesn't matter whether you're catching fish or not, it's time to go. That way you have a better chance of getting off of the ice without an issue. Now, talking about Cotton Road, they were getting machines on at that access by Cotton Road, is my understanding, up until today. And then the same thing there today, one too many machines, although I don't think they'd had to do any recovery on it, but those machines broke that ice up at that access at Cotton Road today. And so now if you're going to get on at Cotton Road, you're going to need waders because it's busted up going out a couple of feet from the shoreline, and it's deep enough that your regular boots aren't gonna cut it. You're going to need like hip waders or taller to get to the ice over there. So if it's, if you really, really, really need to get on there, that's what you're going to need to get out on there. I don't think a board is going to be long enough to do it there at that location. So now we're going to slide back down a little bit further, probably to the place that most of you guys want to hear about, and that's the Lake St. Clair Metro Park. Okay, now I have been down to the Metro Park 3 times today. First time this morning. I'm not going to show videos of every time I went down there because nothing really changed. But what I'm going to say is, so looking out from the day sail ramp, you got about 100 yards of ice that's left straight out from the day sail ramp. Looking down to the south towards the Clinton River cutoff boat launch, that ice angles out and extends out in front of the Clinton River cutoff boat launch. So out past the 2 points at the boat launch down there. Looking down towards the point at Metro, that ice angles out away from the beach and out towards the point. That's where it was. That's the ice conditions as of tonight, just before dark. After I got out of the store, I went down there. We shot that video, and so that's the ice conditions down there. That ice is really not locked on at all. You can see that it is moving right along the shoreline there in front of the day sail ramp. There was enough wave action that you could see the water kind of pushing up along the shoreline. And what'll happen at this time of the year now, once we get that open water out there and you get a windy day like today, it's moving that water enough that it's creating a current. and that current now is going to push underneath the ice, and it's going to slowly erode under the ice. Now, this is one of the key things. With that water temperature at 32 degrees, it's not eroding very much at all, okay? So if it's really doing much. But the fact is that once that sun comes out earlier, later this week, with those warmer temps coming in, then it's really going to start to work at that ice. With the warming surface temps and that water pushing up underneath the ice, it's going to eat everything away. And it'll slowly work its way up into that north end of the lake up in Anchor Bay as well, although they have considerably more base up there still left out on the lake than probably what we had at Metro for the whole season. So, if it's me and I was going to fish at Metro, I would go in from the beach, from the flagpole area, and then maybe fish really shallow there or down towards the point, really shallow. You got to pay incredible attention to the wind direction. It doesn't look like we're going to have any more bad winds for the next several days going into next week, but we're going to have primarily either longshore or slightly offshore winds. So if you're gonna go out on that stuff, you got to pay crazy attention to the wind direction and just know that it could blow out. Okay, so you got to leave yourself enough. You don't want to leave too much distance between you and the shore because you're gonna lose that foot race. So. The rest of the Metro Park in there were still guys on the ice as of today in the basin area, although in and around the basin there, some areas have pulled away from the shore from the sun beating down. You guys know I talk about that, the south-facing shoreline and the north-facing shoreline. That south-facing shoreline there by that parking area by the boat launch, is all like eroded away from the shoreline. Then if you follow that shoreline around to by where the docks and stuff are at, then the ice is pulled up much tighter against the edge there. Water is low, so as I've said before, if you're going to get up and down off of docks, you definitely need to have some sort of a ladder to do that, okay? Looking at the Marsh area is pretty much trashed. With the combination of the shallow water, the rain, and the sun that we've had, that water back there in that Marsh area has heated up a lot more. That sun has worked on that ice back there, and it's really starting to open that up now. That ice that's out away from the shoreline, you may be able to stand on it, but there's not going to be many places you're going to be able to get to that ice. And then with the forecasted sun that we've got coming in there, I wouldn't even try that at all. I would write off the Marsh area now for the season. I think that's a done deal. I wouldn't risk it in there. It's going to warm up too quick, and that stuff's going to get really sketchy if it isn't already sketchy out in the middle as it is now. So fishing reports, we've been getting good reports from the guys that are fishing, but it's all a matter of being able to get out onto the ice. The areas, as a rule, that have much more limited ice, those fish are going to come in, especially the perch, are going to come up in under that ice. That happens all the time. It doesn't matter whether you have 12 inches of water underneath the ice or whether you've got 3 or 4 feet of water under the ice. Those fish tend to move in under that ice edge, and they use it. It's kind of like a giant floating boat dock, and that's the way it works. I've been in waders kind of floating around on little kegs of ice in areas that I knew the water was only, 18 inches deep, and I've caught fish through the cracks sometimes on that floating ice. You can call it crazy, but I mean, the worst case scenario when I got my waders on in a situation like that is I'm going to get my waders wet is about it. But again, it's if you do this late season ice fishing smart, you can avoid trouble. If you do it and make bad decisions, you can get in a whole lot of trouble. So my advice to you is if you're not a daredevil and you generally tend to not make good decisions, stay home and start getting your stuff ready for walleye jigging season, because that's gonna be approaching pretty quick. There is a lot of ice out there on Lake St. Clair still, even though it is pushed away from the American side right now, and it is going to take a while to work its way down. There's still significant ice up there in Lake Huron as well, although these winds have probably busted that up pretty good up there. But Point is, there's a lot of ice that's got to come down through the system. All that Anchor Bay ice has got to break up or melt off before and come down through the system too. So it's not really time to start getting out there yet, because in a boat right now there's still a lot of ice moving around, and you don't want to hit something like that while you're out there. But this is going to be the last weekend of what I'll call relatively safe ice conditions for those of us that are very cautious and kind of know what we're doing. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of done for everybody as of right now. Looking at the weather forecast for next week, it looks like we've got below freezing temps like tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday night, maybe Sunday night. And then we're going to go up around 50 degrees on Monday, and then it just gets warmer from there, and we don't go below freezing at all at night. So you're not going to get any reprieve that's going to harden up that surface of the ice out there. Got a lot of sunshine forecasted next week. That sun's going to bake that ice. It's going to honeycomb it. For any of you folks, if you don't know what honeycombing is, that's basically where the ice forms like these crystals that are vertical. Okay, think of them. They're just elongated crystals of ice, and they don't have any. There's no frozen water, no ice between them, right? That holds them together. So eventually, what happens is, you get the melt off on the top, and it works its way down through that ice. It can be really thick ice. I've been on honeycomb stuff like up in the UP that was a couple of feet thick, and it's like a sponge mat that's just sitting on top of the water. And once all of those little icicles that are like standing vertically, once they lose all the little ice that's connecting them all the way down to the bottom, they just shatter. And it's crazy. I mean, I've seen it happen. I've seen literally like big sections of the lake just disintegrate all at one time and then just collapse and it's just gone. And you don't want to be on the ice when it does that, because it's one of the worst parts about it. And I've fallen through before in honeycomb ice, not in a situation though where I was so deep that I couldn't get out or touch the bottom. But it's like kind of being in like a quicksand, because everything around you is rotten and there's nothing that you can grab on. And so as you're putting pressure on more of that honeycomb ice, it just keeps disintegrating. So it's really bad stuff, and you do not want to be on the ice when it totally lets loose, when it's honeycomb like that. And it's very spongy. It's very, it's just, you don't want to do it. Just not good, not a good thing. But I know a lot of you guys hear us talk about honeycomb ice, so you didn't actually know what it was. You can kind of see it if you're used to looking at it, because it'll change color. The way that the light works its way through it completely changes. It'll get kind of this really dark greenish gray color when it's really honeycomb, and that's kind of like right before it really lets loose. And you definitely don't want to be on any of that stuff. So anyways, that's what I'll say about the honeycomb scenario. But that's going to happen probably next week out there. Even on that thick ice out in Anchor Bay, you might be able to squeak through the week out there and not lose everything. And then next weekend, if the forecast holds true, there's going to be some below freezing nights again, maybe going in towards next weekend or the beginning of the following week. I don't know if we have enough ice base up on that north end to go through this whole week of warm temperatures and sunshine. Guess we'll have to see. If I have to do another late ice report next week, I will. But with all that sun, I think the shorelines are going to be pretty much shot by then, and I don't know how you'd get out onto that ice anyways. It may just end up being an island of ice up in Anchor Bay floating out away from the shoreline. So, but I guess we'll wait and see what happens then. We had a lot of spring inventory come into the store this week. Big Shimano shipment came in with lots of rods and reels and stuff. We've started painting jigs again. For those of you that have been waiting, because we were so busy in the store this winter, I actually shut down parts of the website that had a lot of our walleye jigs on there. I will be turning those functions back on the website. So if you're one of one of the folks that doesn't live right by the store, maybe you live out of state or whatever, and you buy our jigs all the time, I will be turning that function back on hopefully in the next couple of days. I've been building inventory to try to get ready for that. Also waiting for a couple of stinger hook orders to come in as well. With all that said, if you do get out this weekend, if this is your last iced weekend, please be extremely careful. Don't go alone. Maybe have one person definitely bring a spud bar to test the ice. And if the other person wants to carry, cordless drill auger or something to go through that ice, especially up on that north end, because it's still relatively thick, even though it's getting kind of crappy. It's still relatively thick. So somebody bring a spud bar, check the ice, be careful, and we'll see you in the shop this weekend. Hey gang, if you like our content, hit the little subscribe button and the bell icon, and you'll be notified as soon as we put out new stuff.